Laura Jarrett on the phone. Laura, we got this note. A judge has resentenced brothers 50 years to life, eligible for parole. It looks like this is on murder, right? So Danny was just talking about the timeline here and the big question mark over the timeline, given how fast we saw things move today. What are the possibilities that you see here going forward?
Right. So now that the judge has resentenced them to something that makes them parole eligible, Gotti, that's going to set off a whole new process here, where now it's going to move to the parole board to decide. And the parole board is going to take weeks to do this. They have over 100 days if they want to review the file, and they may not be nearly as up to speed as this judge was, or they can take less if they want to. But now the parole board is going to get to decide what to do here. And it's a panel of people, and they're going to be able to figure out what they think should happen. At that point, Gotti, the parole board will make a recommendation about what should happen. After that, we're still not done yet, because then at that point, Governor Newsom gets a chance to weigh in. And he then has at least 2 months, if he wants, to take his time and decide what to do there. If he does nothing, Gotti, and he decides, you know what, I'm just going to say nothing, and I'm going to let the parole board decide what to do here and just let that decision hold, then it could be that they get out, and let's call it 100 days from now. But it's gonna need to go through that process, and that's why it's not going to be that they're just walking free, immediately. This is going to now take a little bit more time, and it's still going to be sort of a long road here while the parole board gets a chance to review the file, and then Governor Newsom gets a chance to weigh in if he wants. And I say if he wants, because he might decide, you know what, a judge has now weighed in, a parole board has weighed in, I'm going to just do nothing, in which case the parole board's decision holds.
Yeah, and I hate to make the California observation, but the last DA, when he broached this, and we saw it in the headlines over and over and over again, and now looking at this timeline that could go as long as the elected people in office want it to, a parole board wants it to. It does seem like it's going to be quite some time. We just saw some family members come out of the courtroom. They are in tears. On one hand, this does look like it is pushing it down the road. Does not look like it was the ruling that Garagos and the brothers were hoping for today. But what are there? Is this a victory for the family in a limited sense? Yes. Is this disappointment? Take us through where things stand legally.
I think by any measure, this is really all they could have asked for. Yes, we had heard Mark Garagos, their defense attorney, talking about, they could be sentenced to manslaughter and they could get out tomorrow. That was always a huge long shot. Everybody who had looked at this carefully and had thought about what the realistic possibility thought what the judge has done today was the likely scenario. If he was going to agree with them, he was going to give them something that would make them parole eligible. He was not going to give them manslaughter after committing murder. And he recognized, the judge did, the seriousness and the gravity of what they were charged with. And I think sentencing them to something that would have had them walk today was not the possibility that anyone really thought was realistic. Instead, what he's done has given them an opportunity towards freedom, and certainly the clearest path towards freedom, right? Remember, we had talked many times over the last couple of months about all of the different avenues and all of the different scenarios. This really is probably the best case scenario for the Menendez brothers and their family members that they could have hoped for, at least the one that was most realistic and the one that puts them on a path towards getting out.
And we heard Camila talking a little bit about those statements. Lyle Menendez is in particular, and a couple things stick out to me. One, that he apologized, walked through what happened, how he was feeling that day, but he also seemed to apologize for things like making a mockery of the justice system, kind of addressing head on a lot of the criticisms that we've seen from DA Hochman and the prosecutors in the past. Do you think that made a difference? Was the judge's mind probably already made up? And will those types of apologies work with the parole board down the road?
It certainly can't hurt them with the parole board, because, again, even if the judge knew what he wanted to do going in there today, Gotti, and he was well read in, the parole board may not be as sort of well-versed in all of this. And I think anything that they can do to set a record that suggests they are acknowledging the severity of their crimes, they're taking responsibility for the severity of what they did, they're owning up to it, all of the sort of rebutting that they can do ahead of time to sort of combat some of the allegations that the DA, Nathan Hochman, made about them. They have to be imagining that the parole board is listening. They have to be imagining that Governor Newsom is listening, right? And they have to be sort of having an ear towards all of these different audiences. Even if today was just about convincing Judge Jessic, they know they have all of these other ears that are out there that they have to get on board with. And anything I think that they can do to combat the idea that they haven't fully appreciated all of the lies and that they haven't really acknowledged the severity. Anything they can do to combat that, I think that has to inure to their benefit in some way.
And Laura, one final question before we let you go, and again, thank you. People are going to be tuning in, and they're going to be wondering, okay, but like, how long are we going to have to wait before we have a final decision? Just ballpark, if you would. Your educated guess is better than anybody else's out there. Are we talking months here? Are we talking by the summer, this year? What does your gut tell you?
I think given the timeline and how long the parole board, again, has more than 100 days to sort of take this in and weigh the evidence and sift through things and be careful and really take a hard look at this. I think best case scenario for them, we're talking a couple months. We're not talking days. We're not talking weeks. I think that's the best case scenario for them. Again, remember their attorney said they were going to get out by Thanksgiving, and we're now approaching Memorial Day. So you can tell these things take a while. There's delays. And we should also mention there is that risk assessment that's still hanging out there. So Governor Newsom is a part of this process. When he was called on to give them clemency, he said, you know what? I hear you. You want clemency. I'm going to decide to let the parole board, who has psychologists, take a look at this and give me a risk assessment of their dangerousness. There is stuff in that risk assessment we still have not seen, Gotti. It was under seal. It's been largely redacted. Some of it has come out and trickled out in court proceedings, and it's not good for them. And so the parole board is going to have the benefit of that. And I don't know what they're going to do with that. And again, they're going to have to make their own independent judgment, separate and apart from this one judge today, about what they think that means and what they think their level of dangerousness is to the community, right? So even though they were charged with murdering their parents, if the parole board thinks that they have a propensity towards violence and that they are still a threat to the community, a parole board might take that seriously. And so I don't think we should just discount the fact that there is that lingering report out there, and we haven't seen everything it says.
Laura Jarrett, thank you so much for the gut check there.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.